To order. Welcome to meeting number 22 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs. Today's meeting is taking place in the hybrid format, as we're all becoming accustomed to. I've been made aware that there may be one or a number of votes today during this meeting. When the bells start ringing, I will be asking for unanimous consent to sit through the bells, and we can suspend to go and vote and look into possibly resuming the meeting once the voting period ends. I just want to make sure everyone was aware of that. So today, pursuant to Standing Order 1082 and the motion adopted by the committee on October 27th, 2020, the committee is commencing its study on a strategy for commemorations in the 21st century. Welcome to all the witnesses who have taken the time to join us today. First and foremost, thank you to all of you. I will introduce each of you, and then I will give you each an opportunity for your 5 minutes opening. I will give you a sort of warning when you have 1 minute left. Don't panic. A minute is quite a long time to wrap things up. But you'll see me do this throughout the meeting, not just in the openings, but in the question period when there's time is coming short. So first and foremost, from Canadian War Museum, we have Carolyn Dromagay, Director General. From the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, David Loveridge, Director, Canada and Americas Area. From Juno Beach Center Association, Don Cooper, President. From the RCMP Heritage Center, Steve McClellan, Board Chair. And from the Vimy Foundation, Caitlin Bailey, Executive Director. So we're going to start the opening remarks with Ms. Dromagay. The next 5 minutes are all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me to appear before you today. As mentioned, my name is Caroline Dromagay. I'm the Director General of the Canadian War Museum. It is a pleasure to be here to talk about how commemoration fits into the activities of the Canadian War Museum and to give you an overview of our strategy for inspiring and educating Canadians at home and abroad in recognition of the service and sacrifice of all who have served. The Canadian War Museum is Canada's National Museum of Military History. It acquires and maintains relevant artifacts for its national collection and disseminates knowledge through research, exhibitions, and public programs. The museum is a venue and facilitator for informed discussion on military history. Our mission is to promote public understanding of Canada's military history in its personal, national, and international dimensions. In other words, we look at how war has affected Canadians as individuals, how it has shaped our country, and how, in times of war, Canadians have influenced world events. We do this through exhibitions, events, programs, and partnerships. Cela sert bien le musée et nos publics.
This serves the museum and our audiences very well. Personal stories resonate at home and abroad and facilitate engagement with history in a real and tangible way, whether our visitors are on site at the museum or engaging with us virtually or on social media. Although our mandate is not one of commemoration, many of our projects and initiatives are intertwined with the commemoration of important events in Canadian military history. Since we last presented before this committee in 2011, the Canadian War Museum has completed a successful multi-year program marking the centenary of the First World War. A lot of personal stories were incorporated into exhibitions, public programs, educational initiatives, and publications, developing and encouraging new knowledge about the First World War. The personal experiences of more than 40 Canadians are the basis of our current special exhibition, Forever Changed, one of the many initiatives we presented in 2020 to mark the 75th anniversary of the Second World War's end.
The exhibition reflects the experiences of a diverse range of Canadians, within many different contexts. The diversity of voices is also reflected in our ongoing collection of oral histories. More than 500 oral histories have been recorded to date, most of them capturing the voices of veterans from the Second World War to Afghanistan. Partnerships are also critical to us. We collaborate regularly with a wide range of national and international partners, some of whom are on this call today, by contributing historical expertise, sharing artifacts from the National Collection, or partnering to host live and virtual events. Although the challenges resulting from COVID-19 highlighted and accelerated the need to make more of our content available digitally, the War Museum was able to respond quickly, offering a rich online exhibitions and resources, as well as dynamic, relevant, and engaging virtual programs reflecting the 75th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. Nous avons aussi offert des ressources.
We also offer digital resources for our supply line discovery boxes, which support educators teaching the First and Second World Wars. In November 2020, we launched a new online resource for Remembrance Day, providing materials that make it easier to produce lessons and ceremonies to commemorate the service of Canada's military personnel. Engagement with our social media channels, where we share many personal stories and commemorative anniversaries with audiences around the world, has risen 17% over the past year. Despite the challenges posed by the pandemic, the Canadian War Museum remains a key national resource for the sharing of Canada's military history.
Change in order to remain relevant to the 21st century. For example, we have developed in 2017 a new gallery involving the conflicts in Afghanistan. We are also developing a framework to guide the renewal of the museum's galleries in response to demographic and societal changes in Canada. This renewal will include the addition of a new dimension to the presentation of Canada's military history to help explain our world in the 21st century. Les expositions, les produits.
Our programs, our collections, and products are all part of our mandate. I will look forward to answering any questions you may have regarding the War Museum and its programming. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that was almost exactly on time, so thank you for that. Not to set up expectations for anybody else, but Mr. Loveridge, the next 5 minutes are yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon. My name is David Loveridge, and I'm the Director for the Canada and Americas area of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today about the work of the Commission here in Canada and around the globe. The CWC has a very clear mandate, which was set out when we were established by Royal Charter during the First World War to commemorate the First World War dead from the British Empire, either through having their name engraved on a headstone or on a memorial to the missing. The Royal Charter defines three main roles for the Commission, which include to mark and maintain the graves of Commonwealth forces who died during the two world wars, to build and maintain memorials to the dead whose graves are unknown, and finally, to keep appropriate records and registers. The CWC commemorates casualties who died during two fixed time periods corresponding to the official start and end dates of both world wars. They start from August 14th, 1914 to August 31st, 1921, and the second period, September 3rd, 39 to December 31st, 1947. Today, the Commission commemorates 1.7 million Commonwealth war dead in 150 countries in 23,000 cemeteries around the globe, including Canada's 110,000 war dead who are interred in 73 different countries in some 65 cemeteries around the world as well. The Commission's work was and continues to be based on principles that each war dead should be commemorated individually, permanently, and uniformly with no distinction made based on rank, civilian rank, military rank, race, or creed. These principles have been is a fundamental reason why Canada, along with its Commonwealth partners, adopted a non-repatriation policy of its war dead during the two world wars. The Commission is organized for operational purposes in 6 distinct operational areas, each of which reports to our head office in Maidenhead in the United Kingdom, just west of London. As the Director of Canada and the Americas area of the CWC, my remit is to carry out the Commission's charter within North, Central, and South America, as well as the Caribbean, which includes over 20,000 war graves and over 3,400 burial grounds in 32 countries. The majority of these casualties are buried and commemorated in Canada. The work of the Commission and cemeteries and memorials are truly commonwealth. For example, the maintenance and security of the Benny-sur-Mer and the Holton Canadian War cemeteries in France and the Netherlands are the responsibility of the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, not Canada. Similarly, there are over 200 Commonwealth war dead buried in Beechwood Cemetery here in Ottawa, including casualties from Canada, obviously, Australia, Britain, and New Zealand forces, all of whom are cared for by our team here in Canada. In addition to our charter work, we do what we call agency services, which are tasks that are performed for various governments outside of our 2 World War charter tasks. Agency work is expanding in scope each year as governments and other organizations approach the Commonwealth War Graves Commission to take on maintenance of their graves and/or memorials. By way of example, overseas, the Commission maintains Vimy, Beaumont Hamel, and other Canadian and Newfoundland World War I battlefield memorial sites in France and Belgium. On behalf of the Government of Canada, we also maintain graves of those who died overseas post-war or in South Africa and Japan during the Boer and Korean Wars. In Canada, we've been contracted by Veterans Affairs Canada to participate in the Veterans Graves Inventory Program, where we inspect, repair, and record veterans' graves across Canada on their behalf. We are currently in year 3 of a 5-year project with Veterans Affairs, assisting them with a backlog of maintenance to some 68,000 veterans' graves in the province of Ontario. And since the start of our work with Veterans Affairs, the CWC have found, photographed, and entered into the VAC database some 205,000 veterans' graves across Canada. The approximately $134 million cost of the Commission's work is shared by our 6 partner governments: Australia, Canada, India, New Zealand, the United Kingdom, and South Africa, who proportionally pay based on the number of graves from each nation. Canada is the 2nd largest contributor to the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, with an annual contribution of just over 10% of our total commission budget, or about $13 million last fiscal year. The organization has several oversights. We have a board consisting of the High Commissioners of our member countries. So the Canadian High Commissioner in London is the representative on the Commission board, plus a distinguished group of individuals appointed by royal warrant for fixed terms. The UK Ministry of Defence audits and is one of our larger contributors, as is a separate firm. The Commission is increasingly looking for ways to reach out to Canadians and are looking at how volunteers could assist us in what we do, not as a way to cut costs or reduce our workforce, but to supplement what we do, especially in many of the remote areas in our area in Canada. Over the next few years, we're going to be looking at a volunteer program. In the UK, it's called Eyes on, Hands on. We're going to be looking at a volunteer program in Canada. To quickly summarize, the Commission is a cooperative of like-minded countries that agreed to the equal treatment and commemoration of the war dead from the 2 world wars. Our Royal Charter establishes the Commonwealth War Graves in perpetuity, and I would find it difficult, certainly in my lifetime, to believe that any government might put up its hand to be the first to say, we don't want or need to do this anymore. Commission employees consider our work to be a debt of honor, and I know that most Canadians would agree that this is the right thing for us to be doing. From a pure commemorations perspective, I believe that Canada receives value for money for what we spend on the Commission. We value our partnerships, and my office and the rest of the Commission are committed to working with and assisting our long-term partner, Veterans Affairs Canada. When people ask me what the CWC does, I tell them that my organization is part of the guardianship and is a keeper of significant piece of Canada's heritage. It's military heritage, and I'm proud to be part of this wonderful global organization. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Up next for 5 minutes, Mr. Cooper, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my privilege to have the opportunity to address you and members of the Standing Committee on Veterans Affairs today. My name is Don Cooper, and I'm president of the Juno Beach Center Association, which owns and operates the Juno Beach Center in Normandy, France. For those of you who aren't familiar with us, the Juno Beach Center is Canada's Second World War Memorial, Museum, and Cultural Center located on the D-Day landing beaches in Normandy. The Juno Beach Center is crucial to Canada's commemorative efforts in Europe. It is not simply a museum about war. It's a place for testimonies and life stories, a historic site, interpretive center, and memorial combined. It is also a cultural representation of the society these Second World War veterans built for their children and grandchildren, and for those who would come to settle here in the decades after the war, today's Canada. The Juno Beach Center was born of a simple question posed by a group of Second World War veterans. They stood on the spot where decades earlier, they had landed as young men to begin freeing northwestern Europe from the clutches of Nazi Germany, Juno Beach, Normandy. D-Day, June 6, 1944, would become one of the most significant events in the history of the modern world. As they looked across the sand and visited the graves of their fallen friends in Normandy, they wondered what would happen when they themselves were no longer around to share these stories. Who would remember? With the same tenacity and resilience they had in the war, these veterans took it upon themselves to raise $12 million from public and private donors to build the Juno Beach Center on the very stretch of beach they had landed so many years before. Today, the Juno Beach Center stands as a sacred piece of Canada and France that commemorates the story of Canadians who put their lives on hold or sacrificed them entirely to fight for a better world. Our founding veterans envisioned a center that was a living memorial, at once a place of remembrance and learning, especially for the younger generations who would be the ones to take up the torch when the veterans were no longer with us to bear witness. Since opening in 2003, we have showcased Canada's Second World War story to over 1 million visitors. Our success is the result of hard work and many passionate staff, volunteers, donors, and partners. Veterans Affairs Canada has been one of our steadfast supporters. Over many years, they have generously supported our operations and our aspirations. We would not be able to do what we do without VAC. There's perhaps no better testament to the strength of our relationship than the success of the official Canadian ceremony hosted at the Juno Beach Center to commemorate the 75th anniversary of D-Day in 2019. For anyone who had the honor to attend, it was one of the most moving experiences imaginable to see over 40 veterans, now all in their 90s, once again standing on Juno Beach and remembering. Almost 20 years since opening our doors, we have accomplished more than I can possibly mention right now. We are proud of all of our achievements, but perhaps most of all, our powerful youth programs that bring history to life for Canadians at home and who travel to Juno Beach, as well as thousands of French students who participate in our educational programs every year. Our balanced and diverse presentation of Canada's Second World War story that includes many perspectives, including the experiences of Indigenous soldiers, Black and Chinese soldiers, and the many, many Canadians who courageously served Canada. Our commitment to creating a space where families can learn and share together, whether they are Canadian, French, or from anywhere around the world, whether or not they have a personal connection to the war. It is a profound moment each time a veteran has returned to Juno Beach with their own children and grandchildren, when they tell us we have done their stories justice and we know we have done our job. We were invited today to provide the committee with input on the long-term Canadian strategy for commemorations as drafted by Veterans Affairs Canada. Our response is that we think that the draft accurately identifies an appropriate vision and mission for the decade ahead and the necessary goals that will serve Canada well in the coming years. The Juno Beach Center sees itself marching in common step towards similar goals with the limitations of our World War II story of remembrance. We hope to complement and enhance the activities laid out in the VAC strategic plan and play our part in this effort. We have unique assets to manage and protect on a historic heritage site, and we will carry our message to visitors and those back home alike. Events that celebrate key dates are an essential tool in their remembrance efforts, but as identified in the VAC plan, the real challenge is in reaching the millions of Canadians of all origins and personal histories with a common message of their shared Canadian military history. It is a history that we can be proud of and one that can bind us as a nation if properly communicated. Recently, we also launched our new strategic plan, which sets out our path to 2024, when we will mark the 80th anniversary of D-Day. One of our most ambitious and important goals to achieve by then is the transformation of our Contemporary Canada Room, the final room in our museum that acts as a window through which Europeans can learn about Canadian culture, traditions, diversity, and values, as well as the military history we impart. We aim to open this brand new updated space for the 80th anniversary of D-Day. A key element to this initiative, as well as all of our operations going forward, will be the integration of sustainable development principles into everything we do. It is our belief that the climate emergency facing the world is our generation's greatest battle, and that to live up to the standards set by our forefathers, we must again come together to safeguard the world and the peace they fought for. In alignment with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals for 2030, we are now transforming the museum to act as a regional and national leader in sustainable tourism. These are two of our most aspirational goals, with many others included in the blueprint for the future. Despite the very real challenges COVID-19 has presented, we're ready to embark on the next 5 years of just recovery and growth. Juno Beach itself has become a strong symbol of the culture and values embodied by Canada, written in the stories of the men and women who demonstrated immeasurable courage and resilience during the Second World War. More than 75 years have passed since the bonds of friendship between nations, liberators and the liberated, were forged in fire. And the JBC demonstrates how they continue today with the shared purpose of educating newer generations about some of the most important moments in Canada's history, and how they can take up the torch of remembrance to become active participants in creating a better world. We truly believe there's no better place for Canada to share its story with the rest of the world than on Juno Beach. Thank you, merci.
Thank you, sir. Up next, we have Mr. McClellan. 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Steve McClellan. I'm the volunteer board chair of the RCMP Heritage Center here in Regina, Saskatchewan. I'm speaking to you proudly from Treaty 4 territory and homeland of the Métis people. Heroes and incredible efforts by our veterans deserve recognition and remembrance. And I want to say congratulations to this committee for initiating this important conversation. New media versions of our news and greater diverse audiences and the ever-growing length of time from at least some of our greater known times of war and peacekeeping make the next few years critical before memories fade and new heroes with much less national significance are raised onto the shoulders of Canadians. Sports, music, and entertainment heroes are much better known these days, and while that's always to some extent been the case, it makes your task today even more important. In fact, without the efforts and sacrifices of our veterans of the past 175 years and of yesterday, the new heroes may not have been able to do what they're free to do today in Canada and abroad. The role of the RCMP is clearly important to all Canadians, and we too at the RCMP Heritage Center see the importance of commemorating our women and men often and with great pride. The military and the police services are going through some difficult times these days, and we should help people who read just the headlines learn of the great work done for well over a century by these same forces and the important role that they play today and will continue to play tomorrow. So we look forward to learning more from you, sharing ideas, and then playing our role as the RCMP Heritage Center to learn and to help celebrate and properly commemorate the people and their actions. And although we're focused on the RCMP as an entity, we could play an important role to share the broader stories of our veterans of all forces, as we're located in Regina and therefore can be a greater and easier reach to the Western audiences and the students and the adults of our Western provinces. We are in the process now of transitioning to become a national museum, and I look forward to a day and future conversations with my colleagues from the other national museums on the calls today. I see the stories that they tell each and every day of great interest to our audiences as well, and our shared exhibit options, I think, will not only improve the communications, improve the commemoration, and also recognize much more broadly than we have been able to the great things that our citizens have done before us. The RCMP will be celebrating in 2023 their 150th anniversary. And I see, as we proceed as a national force, to have our National Museum put in place and the celebration activities for that 150th recognized and implemented, that there's a great opportunity for us to involve the conversations that you're embarking on today to be part of that. We need to pay respects to those that have fallen and those that have served, and to make sure that our young people and people of all ages and our newcomers to this country don't forget, and that we make sure that we share those stories with them. So I'm well under 5 minutes, Mr. Chairman. I hope you appreciate that, and I do look forward to any questions or conversations that we have. And once again, I thank you for having me.
I absolutely appreciate that, sir. Thank you very much. And up next, we have Ms. Bailey for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee, and my commemorations colleagues. It is my pleasure to be here today with you discussing the future of commemoration in Canada. The Vimy Foundation has worked tirelessly since 2006 to provide new and meaningful ways for Canadian youth to engage with the memory of the First World War through experience-building, classroom resources, and scholarships. The Foundation assisted Veterans Affairs with the funding of the Visitors Education Centre at the Canadian National Vimy Memorial, opening in 2017, and is now the owner and administrator of the Vimy Foundation Centennial Park, next to the memorial. We also collaborate with the Hill 70 Memorial, another Canadian-funded property in Luz-en-Goële, France. Je suis un membre du comité.
Committee members, I would first like to thank Veterans Affairs for their investment of $400,000 over the past 3 years for our innovative Vimy Living Monument project. It was planned to launch in April 2022 with the collaboration of a number of national organizations, including the Canadian War Museum. It is designed to bring Vimy and the esprit of Vimy to everyone. We are very pleased to have the opportunity to work with the European operations team and our private and public partners.
However, is not finished. As most of you know, the Vimy Foundation, with our colleagues, the Hill 70 Memorial, have been speaking to all of you about the urgency to re-examine how Veterans Affairs supports private sites in Europe. We are pushing for expanded funding criteria within the existing monument renovations program and a direct contribution of $700,000 over 5 years for our 2 sites, the Vimy Foundation Centennial Park and the Hill 70 Memorial. Both private sites represent significant Canadian investment by individuals, municipal councils, and the provinces in the commemoration of these important First World War moments. I would also remind the committee that at this time, the current 2021-2022 budget restricts the funding envelope available to Parks Canada for their heritage sites to Canadian sites only, despite the implication of Parks Canada in the Canadian National Vimy Memorial and other heritage battlefields in Europe. Malgré que ces lieux soient
Although these sites are not close at hand and therefore not front of mind, they do represent Canada's public image abroad, and they hold symbolic value for those who visit the sites. Our 2 organizations have made a commitment to maintain their respective sites in a condition that is appropriate to their great importance, and we continue to work proactively with the European operations team. However, long-term investments in maintenance are an increasingly important challenge. So I would again call on the Standing Committee and on Veterans Affairs Canada to work together toward a new strategic plan for 10 years.
in many ways a community act. It is the coming together of people to mark a significant time, but also to mark many thousands of private events. The family member who did not come home, the neighbor who was injured, the lives changed immeasurably. The Vimy Foundation continues to be a proud partner of Veterans Affairs to provide opportunities for Canadians, especially young Canadians, to take part in this important act. We're looking forward to shaping the future of commemoration with you and with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Thank you for your attention. Merci.
Thank you very much. And also coming in under time, much appreciated. We are going to go right into the first round of questions, which is MP Broussard. I will give you a heads up, John, that I will be needing to likely interrupt you during your question to ask for UC to continue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And you won't be interrupting me, you'll be interrupting our witnesses, because I'm going to take a minute to ask my question, and I would like all of you to respond in a minute that you will have, because we only have 6 minutes. First of all, thank you all for being here, and there's no question that commemoration is important to all of us, and I think the statement was that, you know, hopefully a government doesn't come in and doesn't want this to be done anymore. I can assure you that there is no one on this committee that would ever propose such a thing. That, you know, we do understand the importance of commemoration for those who served and the history of our country. I want to, I've spoken to a couple of you already in side meetings that we've had at the Juno Beach Center. And by the way, Darren and Joel Watson, Don, are strong advocates for the center, as you know, and Caitlin, we spoke as well. We spoke about the short-term challenges that each organization is having, and obviously as a result of COVID, but there are some medium to long-term financial challenges that are coming up for all of the organizations. We know that VAC has proposed $44.9 million in spending in the commemoration programming in 2021-22. We haven't seen a financial plan yet, unless I'm missing something, for the actual strategic plan. So for all of you to respond to this, if you were us recommending to the government how to spend money on commemoration, where would you want it to go? And I'll start with Caitlin. And you only have a minute.
Only a minute. Thank you, John. Yeah. I appreciate it. I think speaking for us, the importance of long-term investments in partners is fairly top of mind. We're all working together to try to achieve commemoration. We're all exterior partner organizations that help VAC do the work that needs to be done, and commitments that are looking over, you know, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years for all of us would help us plan better and would help us to be able to better adapt to the situations that we find ourselves in.
Thanks, Caitlin. Don Cooper?
Yep, sorry. So okay. Hit my mic there. Yeah, if I stand back from it, I don't know what all the needs are of the other organizations. We just look at our needs and basically where we're going. We're very much a growth-oriented private business, if you will. We've had tremendous success. 2019 was our biggest year ever, with over 100,000 visitors. And we've kind of responded to the look forward by saying we're going to have to make about a $5 million investment in expanding the Juno Beach Center and changing things around. We're hoping that the financial anchor on all of that actually comes out of France and out of sustainable development activities that we're doing. So we're not looking to, you know, Veterans Affairs in any major way, but it would be nice to have them participate with the French and with us in terms of expanding the Juno Beach Center and, you know, dealing with our needs as we go forward, because we do anticipate a growing museum when once this culvert business is behind us.
Okay, thanks. Steve?
The first thing I would suggest is to make sure that we don't lose anything in terms of the physical presence that we have overseas or in Canada. And that's critical, because once we lose that at the Vimy Center, for example. Second is to put monies and efforts through the organizations to fund the communications in manners that the people that we're trying to attract and to educate are listening to. And that would use social media perhaps much more than we have collectively in the past. And the third I would encourage you to do is to help incentivize, or encourage at least, the private sector involvement in the kinds of things that we're speaking of today. I think there's a great demand for that, and also a responsibility of the corporate community to stand tall and to respect and to pay their respect, if you will, through these commemoration activities. Thank you.
Thank you. And perhaps somebody else on my team can address the private sector challenges that exist as well currently because of COVID. The next one would be Caroline.
Thank you. So I think I would come at it from the public institution that we are focusing on, that public history and that preservation and education. So I think there we would benefit from encouraging the recording of these stories and these experiences of veterans so that their stories are not forgotten. I think that many of our efforts during the planning for the end of the 75th of the end of the Second World War was realizing how few people were left, veterans. And it's very important to preserve their stories, their objects, their experiences, so that we can educate future generations on their experiences.
Thank you. And I know we have a compassionate chair who's going to allow David some time to respond to that question as well. Thank you.
Good. Thank you very much. I think I'm going to take an angle from a perspective of we have a clear responsibility to maintain 1.7 million memorials or commemorations around the world. And so many of those commemorations are over 100 years old now. And so maintaining not only the graves and the grave markers, but all of the memorials that were built, places like Teep Bell and the Menon Gate or the Indian Gate in India. They're large resources. They're large in scope and large in size. And I think that our obligation should be to maintain what we have, make sure that we do our veterans proud and that we properly commemorate them going forward. And that's an investment that's in perpetuity from our perspective, and I think important going forward.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. And that is your time as well. The bells are going. So we timed that very well, folks. I do need to ask for unanimous consent to continue. What I would like to suggest is that we go until the bells are down to 10 minutes. Do I have unanimous consent, or sorry, anybody object to that?
Not from our side, Chair.
All right, I'm seeing no objection. So I will continue on.
I will just warn you that Mr. Davidson, because of his internet connectivity, has to log off. So we do need to give him some time to do that, and he'll have to log back on.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Sorry. Up next, MP Amos for 6 minutes. Go ahead.
Merci.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I want to thank our witnesses who are here with us today. I really appreciate your testimony. As MP Brasseur has said, this is a very important topic, and we need to show respect for this whole area of commemoration, and we are pleased to work together on this. It is a fairly non-partisan issue, fortunately. I would like to emphasize a little bit more what was said by Ms. Dromaguet. I really appreciated your being here today to represent the Canadian War Museum here in the National Capital Region. I know I have people in my riding who work at your museum. I'd like to give you the opportunity to highlight, in the context of your operations, what you are doing, how COVID-19 has impacted you, and what you are asking the federal government to do to support you during this difficult period. We have just had the federal budget, and I want to know how that budget meets your expectations. Thank you very much, Mr. Samson. That's an excellent question. There's no doubt that COVID-19 has had a huge impact on us. We have been closed to the public for most of the past year, and therefore most of our income has dwindled, and we have lost 96% of our visit, and things aren't expected to improve very much over the next year. So we have had to ask the government to cover the losses that we expect in our revenues. And this assistance has been provided we've been promised $4.9 million. And this will enable us to continue with our programming and activities. I do want to clarify that COVID-19 affects both the Canadian War Museum and the History Museum, because we are sister organizations. We have pivoted as cultural institutions to digital platforms. It was an accelerator, in fact, that took us further in that direction. Our school programs have been adapted to digital platforms, as well as our exhibits. It has also enabled us to take our mandate nationally. Often, people who visited us in person were very taken by our exhibitions, and now we have the opportunity to reach Canadians across the country and even abroad. I mentioned our presence on social media. We have increased that by 17% over the past year, as I already mentioned. So we have a very diversified offering to Canadians. If I can come back to programs that we offer, we have really had a chance to present military history in a much more modern way. For example, we have these discovery boxes that we send across Canada, and they are accompanied by lessons and materials in support of what we're trying to present. And this enables students, including those who are new to Canada, to familiarize themselves with Canadian history, and people from diverse backgrounds can talk about their own history and the history of their regions and families. So those are some of the things that we've been doing over the past year. We have broadened our offerings and our presentation means of military history. With the money that fortunately has been earmarked for us in the most recent federal budget, we will continue to increase our programs once we and get ready to come back in person. Thank you. I see that I don't have much time left, so I will conclude by saying directly to Mr. Cooper, to him and to his team at Juno Budget. I want to thank her very much. Mariel Bradford is a constituent of mine, and she is on your board of directors. Very proud to work with your organization. So thank you very much on behalf of Mariel, and thank you to all of you.
Compliment.
Thank you for that compliment. We have a great team across Canada and in France. And so your remarks are very appreciated.
Thank you. Up next, MP Desilets for 6 minutes, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all the witnesses for being here and for sharing with us your great experience. You play a kind of unique role. You are providing this information and these commemorative sites. As has already been said, most people support the idea of commemorating this history, and I think everyone on the committee certainly does as well. We want to maintain these commemorative sites and perhaps do more to promote them. However, not everyone in Canada is of that mind. Some people feel that these expenses are not really necessary. So my question would be first for Mr. Cooper. How do we convince people that commemoration is a good thing, that the money is well spent, that it is proper recognition for people who have worked and fought on behalf of their country? Mr. Cooper, please. Could I answer in English, please? Thank you. Of course, we have interpretation. That's a little easier for me. I think that the message is very strong. And it is the right message.
Together often is our history. And we have to have a shared mutual history for that to be successful. And basically, the military history of Canada is an essential part of that, as we all recognize in this room. Getting that message out to, new Canadians, is a challenge. But I mean, I've met many of them, and they embrace Canada when they come to Canada, and they embrace our history when you tell it to them. You just have to find the communication paths that get them basically educated on what our history is. And they will relate to it. They will grow with it. And so that's the challenge. It's not the million visitors we put through the Juno Beach Center, that are the key. Those are usually often our stakeholders. You're selling to the convinced already. So it's the others who haven't come that they basically represent the challenge. And I think that's the communication art of today. We've got so many opportunities to reach people today that it's never been a better time to basically be in the position of trying to get that message out. But it will resonate, and we just have to keep pushing at it.
Merci.
Thank you. I appreciate your answer. I agree with you about the importance of our history and our heritage. So my question would be the same for Ms. Dromaguet. What arguments can we use to counter those that say this is not important? Thank you. Ms. Blakey, rather. My thought is that we need to do things along the lines mentioned by Ms. Dromaguet. We are here in Canada, and others have already talked about the connection we have with the major wars, with veterans, but I think everyone, in fact, has a connection with war and the experience of war, how we see war, and how war has changed the countries we come from. I believe that we need to highlight the idea not just of veterans, but war as a universal experience, and to use that as a tool to make connections between people. Perhaps Canada's experience in the First World War and that war is far from your own experience, but in fact, the feelings, the experiences of that event had an impact that you can connect with. And this is what we are working on in our next project, Vimy, a living memorial. We want to make that connection between people living today and their war experiences and that history. So thank you very much for that very good question.
Je m'excuse.
I'm sorry. I couldn't turn on my mic quickly. Thank you very much for that answer. I don't know if someone could answer this following question. We're in a pandemic, and we cannot involve veterans in commemorative events. Has anyone had a good idea for how to bring veterans together virtually and help them socialize? Does anyone have anything to say about that?
That's your time, and I'm going to have to ask for a very, very brief answer from somebody, or we'll have to move on.
Je peux peut-être répondre si vous voulez.
Perhaps I could just give a short answer. Caroline Dromaguet, Canadian War Museum. We have had a number of panels with veterans. The most recent was with the Korean War veterans, and a tool has been developed to help that community celebrate Remembrance Day, even if they could not attend in person. So this is something very helpful to the communities. We are now moving into phase 2 this year so that we can get more stories and more records and we hope that people will be able to come together in large numbers soon.
Thank you. So up next we have MP Blaney. I will have to cut you off before your time, but I will make sure we come back to you with whatever remaining time you have.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all of you for being here today. And thank you for your important work, because really what I see you as doing as keeping that collective memory alive and educating generation after generation so that we don't forget. And I think that's something we all need to keep in our hearts and in our minds, is literally this is how we remember collectively what's happened in our history. So I have tons of questions and not enough time, but I guess the first question that I have is around technology and how do we retell the story to the younger generation that's coming, and what is the work that you're doing around that? I'm going to start with you, Madame Dromaguet. You talked about in your presentation the 500 oral histories that have been recorded to date, and I'm just really curious about how you're sharing those stories. And I would love if you could tell us if there's any women or how many women involved in that. That would be helpful. So if I could just leave it at you at that.
Sure. Thank you very much for that question. And it is something that we that is very top of mind for us. It's reaching those younger audiences, and of course via the platforms that are more relevant and I suppose accessible to them. And so many of our programs, as I was mentioning earlier, answering Mr. Amos's questions, our educational programs have been adapted to a technical platform. And this is not only by necessity of what is going on, but also hearing back from educators. So we adapt what we do, not because we think it's what's working, but it's because we have great relationships with Canada and other stakeholders who actually give us that very important feedback. And so one example from a school program very quickly is we are able to offer access to some of our expert educators to connect virtually to the classroom wherever they may be, and invite veterans sometimes also to give their own lived history. It's a very, very popular program in situ, but it's growing in popularity online, as you can imagine. And to your second point about the oral history, this is a project which is somewhat in its infancy, where throughout our recent history, so the last 20 years, I would say, we have accumulated these oral histories as we have collected many, many other things. And we're very happy to have received a very generous donation just around Christmas time that will allow us to actually create a platform. And if I can use the working title for this platform, it will be In Their Voices. So what it is going to be this digital platform where we will migrate, if you will, these oral histories, but grow the program. And in growing that program, of course, we are very concerned and aware of the need for that diversity and those various voices. And it won't only be from veterans, but also the experiences of their families, which we think is part of that bigger story of commemoration, because as we know, the experiences of our veterans has affected also the experiences of their family, which is a story that is very, very important to tell. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I don't know how much time I have left, but
actually, if I could jump in, Rachel, this is actually a good break. It doesn't means I don't have to interrupt anybody. We've stopped your clock. You will have, I'll confirm with the clerk how much time you have left. But I know there are those that have to deal with some technical stuff. So we're going to suspend for the vote now. If you don't have to log off, don't. Will be a lot quicker. But if you do have to log off, we'll obviously wait for you to come back. And for witnesses, we will be as quick as we can. We have about 10 more minutes of bells, and then it's about 10, 11, 12 minutes to do the vote. And we'll come back and we'll also record how much time the gap has created. Add that, assuming there's no objections, we'll add that to the end of the today's meeting. We've gotten confirmation that we're able to extend. So, all right, so we'll suspend, folks, and happy voting. We'll see you shortly.
Well, thank you very much. And thank you for everyone's patience that is here today for that vote disruption. If I could come to you, Ms. Bailey, I very much appreciate the work that you do. And one of the things that you talked about in your testimony was maintenance supports and how critical those are and some of the concerns you have about other countries. I was just wondering if you could talk about the specific challenges that you see around maintenance of these important parks and so on, and what kind of resources do we need to see implemented to support those, especially the ones that are, of course, in other places, but recognize the Canadian impact internationally?
Thank you so much, Ms. Blaney. I think I can speak specifically for our organization with the Vimy Centennial Park and the Hill 70 Memorial. Both of these are large private sites that exist very close to the Canadian National Vimy Memorial. Both organizations built them with the intention of continuing to maintain them. And we are all continuing to maintain them as we have originally vowed to do. However, I think that the major issue for us is thinking about the future, and not so much the future in 5 years, but we're thinking about the future in 10, 15, 20 years, and what happens with these sites. It is difficult, I think. We know because we all work in this environment, we have a sense of who manages what and where it goes and how it's done. But for the average Canadian that's coming in and seeing one of these sites, they don't know who manages it. And so their first stop often when there are problems and there are things that are in disrepair is to go to Veterans Affairs, because that's the first place that they see. So I think that we need to think about the sites that are outside of Canada that continue to mark Canadian events, and making sure that those don't remain out of sight, out of mind, because there aren't Canadians going there regularly and saying this is in disrepair, this needs to be replaced. So just not falling into that trap, I think, of out of sight, out of mind until something terrible happens, and then people are looking at that and saying, why did this happen? So taking a proactive stance, I think, rather than a reactive stance. And I saw the finger from Mr. May, so I'm going to stop there, but that would be my first sort of piece of thought on that.
That's perfect. Thank you so much. And I leave it to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And just to clarify for anybody listening, I didn't actually give anybody a finger. So up next, we have MP Wagenthal, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. I appreciate you all being here, and the little bit of experience I've had going overseas and visiting those sites on a trip as a member of Parliament. Believe me, it's something that I just wish every Canadian could do. And our museum here, all of my grandkids have been there in Ottawa, so we have a lot to be very proud of. I want to ask some questions of Steve McClellan, who is the chair of the group back home in Saskatchewan, working on the museum status for our RCMP Heritage Centre. And as you know, Steve, in his mandate letter from the Prime Minister, the Minister has been tasked with making sure that the Royal Canadian Mounted Police Heritage Centre is a national museum. And I know that's our priority, and certainly a very valid one. I'm very excited to see that happen. However, I also want to bring up the fact that this is a 10-year plan that we're looking at to improve commemoration across Canada. And the vision is to have Canadians understand and appreciate those in uniform, their contributions and sacrifices, have all veterans and family members feel recognized. And they indicate here that it would be a broader approach to expand the focus of VAC's commemorative programming without removing the traditional focus on World War II and Korean War veterans. VAC wants to increase awareness of other international operations in which the Canadian Armed Forces and the Royal Canadian Mounted Police have served and participated in. So, of course, we have to recognize, and sometimes we even forget here within this community, we have a responsibility to the RCMP as well. And we did travel across Canada in the last sitting government, right from Nova Scotia to British Columbia, up to Yellowknife and to Beauval, northern Saskatchewan, where we met with Métis and Indigenous individuals. And we did visit with serving and veteran RCMP members who take on incredible challenges. And I just wonder what your perspective would be if you could see commemoration as part of that museum towards our veterans. Do you have an idea of what you would think that could or should look like?
Thank you very much. It's an important question, and your task, as I indicated earlier, I think is critical. And I would reiterate, as I said and others have said, how important it is that our national brand and our care of remembrance globally be recognized and financed to the extent that that we can and that we need to. I would say that we need to because I know that we can. As it relates to how to do it, the world has changed in so many ways recently. And that's important for us to, in some ways, lament, of course, but it's also for us to learn the lessons. So, for example, you've heard today that the ability for us, well, you can see the ability for us today to meet virtually, and all of us didn't have to sit on airlines. We didn't have to take 2 or 3 days to do this, and I think it's a very effective way to communicate. Let's think about ways that we can do that to share those stories of those people who maybe, if they're certainly Second World War or First World War vets or Korean vets, they're not able to go to Ottawa to share their story. They're not able to remember, to go to the Remembrance Day services, maybe even in their own town, but they could perhaps sit in front of a camera and do these sorts of things. So to the agencies that are here that are already digitizing those stories, I give you full credit.
Okay.
And I'll reiterate that point of the stories. The reason that I think we commemorate not just the collective great work that these people did, it's how much they gave up to do it. Mm-hmm. Many of us have lamented the fact that woe are we that we have to stay inside for a year or 6 months and we haven't seen our family or our children. Imagine those young men, often young men, women too, who didn't see their families for 4 years or 5 years. Let's tell those stories about their experiences. And sometimes when they are young people and ourselves are shown that experience in movies, they don't really show the trenches. They do not show the difficult days. Right. They show the celebratory times in a French bistro or something like that. I think we need to be able to say, let's hear from these people. And another thing that's similar across all forces, RCMP, who serve in peacekeeping roles, Northwest Mounted Police, who have served in roles overseas with different wars, is that they don't often come back and speak of it broadly and freely. Let's provide a safe space for them to do that so that we capture in their words and to the approval that they'll give us their stories and their experiences.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. Well, I just had one more question in relation to that because
I'm afraid that's time, Kathy. Sorry.
My apologies, Kathy.
No, not at all. That was excellent. Thank you so much.
Daryl, for 5 minutes, please. Sampson, MP Sampson.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you all 5 of you for your presentation today and the role you play in helping recognize our men and women who serve. It's so important. I'd like to focus my question to 2 groups, Carolyn and David, because I want to talk about modern day veterans and if we're recognizing them and to what extent, how can we do better? So, of course, on March 31st was the 7th anniversary of the end of the Afghanistan war. And, there are modern day veterans who feel that their dates are not on the cenotaphs from 2001, 2014, the role Canada played in peace and the service of peace, if you want. And some of them are quite frustrated. I have a constituent, retired Chief Warden Officer Robert Thompson. He's been the champion of this issue for a number of years now. And by his count, about 7,500 cenotaphs across the country are failing to recognize the Afghan vets. So my question to both of you would be, how can we, are we recognizing them in some way, shape, or form now in your institutions? And if so, how are we doing it? And how can we do it better as we move forward? Thank you. We'll start with Caroline.
Merci, Mr. Sampson.
Thank you, Mr. Sampson.
Important question. You're quite right. And again, if I come to this from a public institution point of view, this is something. If I start from a collecting point of view, it's something it's a bit of a challenge for us because we want to be able to collect these stories, but these veterans still are in possession of these objects, and they're not quite ready to let them go. But we have other ways to record their stories. So modern day veterans, of course, are among the individuals we hope to interview and record their stories. So that's how we're recognizing those stories. We've also very recently, as I was mentioning in my opening statement in 2017, updated our permanent galleries to tell the story from Cold War to Afghanistan. And that was a very important project for us because we were able to give a voice to these, as we would call them, these modern day veterans. So we have some very, very poignant and relevant stories. And it's so important to tell, you're right, because it's in our living memory. We're maybe a bit used to commemorating events that happened 100 or 75 years ago, but these are conflicts that most of us still remember. So it's very important to tell. And perhaps,
thank you, Caroline. Maybe I can have David
sure.
chime in because I have another quick question. So go ahead, David.
Yeah, I'll be really quick. So for the Commonwealth War Graves Commission, as I stated in my opening statement, our mandate is very clear. The First World War and the Second World War, and even within those two periods, very specific. So even if veterans who came back from the First World War, for example, died outside our mandate period, we don't take care of them as the Commonwealth War Graves Commission. They're cared for by Veterans Affairs Canada. And so it's difficult for us because we honor all of our veterans. We want to do that. Yeah. So even example at Beechwood, there isn't a separate section for the Afghan veterans.
Thank you, David. But again, we're looking at how we could do it. So maybe that'll be an addition. That being said, I'll come back to you, Caroline. How can we apply, if you want, an Afghan veterans lens to from now on what we do in commemorating?
Well, I think it's relating, making their story relevant to people today. So I think that, again, speaking to their experience, because in my view, it's important to for people to connect with what these veterans have experienced. And we're talking about making sure that the contribution of Canada on the international level is known, and I think that's very important. And just to finish that off, we are getting a lot of that feedback from educators across the country who really want us to integrate those very modern stories and experiences in the tools that we provide teachers. So it's to engage those veterans in telling those stories, and it can be a challenge. Not everybody wants to talk about it.
Thank you. I know my time's probably running out, but David,
it is.
Just with your expertise, how easy would it be to put those dates on the Cenotaphs, the 7500, that we don't have them on now?
2 second answer, please.
From a pure physical ability, easy.
Yes.
From a political perspective, maybe not so easy.
Okay, thank you.
Up next, MP Desilets for 2.5 minutes, please.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My first question is for Mr. McClellan. We learned recently that Veterans Affairs had put aside some $45 million for 21-22 for commemorative events and activities. I don't know whether that's enough money or too much, not enough. So could you speak to that, please? I would like to ask the following question to Mr. McClellan. You play a central role in your area. Do you think that Veterans Affairs is providing enough for that?
Both very good questions, and thank you. I can guarantee you this: there will be many people who say 44 is too much, and many others who say it's not enough. Such is your world of politics. I would suggest that if you give enough time for people to ramp up, that it will do a nice job. And my day job is with the Chamber of Commerce, and I know that the private sector honors the people that you're representing in this discussion today, and they will step forward. So if you need to do that, let's bring them to the table. On the second one, Veterans Affairs, my responsibilities with the Heritage Center, I'll be honest, have not been integrated heavily with Veterans Affairs, so I couldn't speak to that, but I would look forward to more conversations of that in the future. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you. Perhaps another question for Mr. Loveridge. We don't have much time, but I would like your opinion about the commemorative sites abroad in contrast to those here in Canada and in Quebec. Is there enough funding for both? Is one or the other underfunded?
My understanding is that the funding in Europe is sufficient to meet the requirements for the memorials in the short term. So I have heard nobody say that there was not sufficient funding in Europe, and I'm talking specifically about the BAC memorials that we care for under the Commission. In Canada, we don't have a lot of memorials, but we do have over 225,000 or 228,000 grave markers, which I think many of you may have been aware that we're not being well maintained, and that's why we're in this 5-year project right now to care for the backlog. I would hate to see us go back to the shortfall funding that we had prior to this project, and so understanding what's required to maintain our grave markers, which are our memorials here in Canada, going forward, I think would be very important.
Thank you. Up next, we have MP Blaney for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you. And if I could come back to you, Mr. Loveridge, thank you for talking about all the work you're doing in terms of maintaining those grave sites. I think that's incredibly important. I'm just wondering, with this backlog, how long is it going to take to catch up? What are the ongoing concerns that you have moving forward? But the other part of this, and I've heard this from other folks, is how are we including young people in seeing and participating? Because I think of what is more meaningful than educating people by actually being there and understanding what it means when we talk about our history.
Both really good questions. So we're in year 3 of addressing the entire backlog across Canada for the Veterans Affairs grave markers. We're making great progress, particularly in Ontario. We're getting them done and bringing up to a standard that I think anyone that would look at them would think was acceptable. So I think at the end of this period, it's good. What I would hate to see is us go back to where we get a backlog again. And so that's issues that we'll address going forward. On the young people thing, I think Carolyn's also talked a lot about the engagement program. And for us, it's the engagement program, we're calling it Eyes on, Hands on. And our plan is to start that program sometime 22, 23 in that time period, where we want to engage the youth. We want to engage Legion. We want to engage, cadet corps. We want to do that kind of stuff. First of all, to help us maintain and care for and be eyes on to all of our markers across Canada, but also to use it as an educational opportunity for those groups to understand veterans. So that engagement and outreach is critical as we go forward, because our veterans from especially the First and Second World War are disappearing and disappearing quickly.
Well, thank you for that. And I really appreciate that. And I know I don't have a lot of time for a really meaningful next question, but I think that this is the important factors, that education, and often is those hand-on opportunities that help us pass on that knowledge. And so I really appreciate that you're doing that work. And I'll leave the rest of the few seconds I have to the next questioner. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Up next, we have, MP Davidson, please, for 5 minutes.
Well, thank you, Chair. Thanks to the witnesses, and thank you for the 12 seconds, MP Blaney. Caroline, I guess Caroline first, I want to say thank you. This is a picture, he kind of looks like me,
That's my grandfather from 1914. He was at Vimy Ridge, Hill 60, and I went to the War Museum one day, and your people there helped me take this old negative and turn this into the photo so we could identify exactly almost to the day where that picture was taken. So I thank you for that and all the work. And I guess, you know what, since we're on the photo, it's always all about the riding. I would say to our Juno Beach, Don, I'm proud to say Jim Parks is in my riding in Mount Albert. And I thank you for that flag program you started. I didn't know anything about that flag program until Jim was doing a run this year that I was proud to go out and support. Anyways, couple things. In my riding is the Chippewas of Georgina Island First Nations. They have a small cenotaph that's in need of some repair. And so my first question would be, what are we doing with First Nations people to show and teach the new generation the contributions they had to Canada in all our wars and all our conflicts? Would be the first question. And if I interrupt, because I have a couple, I have so many questions, but go ahead, someone with that, if they could. Go ahead, Caroline.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson. That's a great picture, and I'm glad we were helpful in getting it for you. And an excellent question. So in terms of First Nations and Indigenous stories, very top of mind and a priority for our institution. Of course, we have stories that are intertwined in our permanent galleries, but I can say that we have amplified that in the last few years. Our most recent and moving example was the donation of the portrait of Philip Favel, who was actually part of D-Day, and we were able to commemorate him in a partnership event with DND last November. And so his story is being told and secured. I think when we shared the photo, actually it went viral. So just to see that there is an interest and a need to tell those very important stories. We're also involving Indigenous stories and perspectives in our educational resources. So when we are talking about our supply line kits or some of our school programs, for instance, we are integrating those stories and telling those important experiences and continuing our efforts to collect. And perhaps I'll end by saying that more and more we recognize that it's important that when we do speak about these experiences, that it's done in consultation, and that the voices that are heard are the voices of the people we represent. And that is something that we really take seriously and want to increase as we move forward.
No, and thanks very much for that. I have a Silver Cross mom that works for me. Her son was killed in action in Afghanistan, and she was very disappointed by the Liberal government when they failed to invite them to the Afghan memorial unveiling. She actually got a letter 2 days after the unveiling. And I just want to know currently what we're doing to make sure, that things like that, don't happen again, and that they're always involved in the commemoration process. Anyone? So when there's a commemoration process, is there going to be outreach, especially with families, I would say that have recently been killed in action? Is there going to be outreach take place?
Sorry, Scott, who's the question to?
Well, I'm asking anyone that's involved in commemoration on that, but I'll leave that. That was just an upsetting incident that took place that, I think that's something we have to look at. If there's going to be any commemorative unveilings like there was with the Afghanistan memorial, that families are notified for sure on that. Secondly, I think
very, very quick, Scott.
Okay, private sector involvement, Vintage Wings of Canada, Michael Potter, his organization? Is there more stuff we can do with the private sector?
Very brief answer, please. Sorry, Scott, who is that to?
I guess it would be to Caroline, but everyone else is I'm going to say gun shy. I don't want to use the word, but
Sure, I can jump in here. No, we have partnered with institutions or private sector companies like Vintage Wings on several public programs. So we're always open to receiving proposals that we review, and if they fit and align with our mandate, more than happy to collaborate.
Thank you. Now for 5 minutes, MP Casey, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to start with Ms. Bailey. In your opening remarks, you made a reference to something that I'd like you to elaborate on, and it was around the budget that was handed down, I guess Monday last week, and a reference to the Parks Canada budget, including funding for Canadian sites only. Can you provide us with a little more detail on what the issue is there and what your advice would be to us as we consider the Budget Implementation Act, as to, if there's a problem, what is the problem and what would you like us to do about it?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mr. Casey. It wasn't really pointing out a problem specifically. It was more saying again that for the European monuments, there's kind of an out of sight, out of mind mentality that goes forward with this. And the my colleague Mr. Leverage mentioned that the budgets are adequate in the short term, and I think that's a good point. They are adequate in the short term, but I think we continue to have to think about the long term, and we're thinking about okay, we have X amount here, it's allocated for improvement and maintenance of Canadian sites, but those are sites, and those are sites specifically in Canada, and the budget does say Parks Canada is getting, I can't remember the amount specifically, but for maintenance of its X number of sites in Canada. But the overseas sites are a partnership management system with Commonwealth War Graves, as Mr. Leverage mentioned. Parks is implicated, Veterans Affairs is implicated. There are private bodies like ourselves implicated as well. And the concern I think that our organization has is again the long term, and trying to think about what happens when these sites need improvement, and the improvement budget right now is saying Canadian sites in Canada, and that causes problems in the long term.
Thank you. Mr. Cooper, I'd like to turn to you now. You indicated that 2019 was the best year ever for the Juno Beach Center, and I'd be most interested in hearing from you of the impact of COVID and what it's going to mean for you going forward. So, what has been the impact of the pandemic, and what do you anticipate the lasting effects will be?
That's a great question. I was good at guessing the beginning of the pandemic. I'm getting fairly poor at looking down the road anymore. It was a disaster from our point of view in terms of revenues. Revenues went to zero, obviously, as we closed the museum. We were open for a few months last year, and so I guess our revenues are down maybe 85% or something because we were open a few months, but that continued into this year. I mean, we haven't opened this year yet, and we don't know when we're going to open next. So our revenues are at zero. I have to say that governments in France and in Canada have really stepped up, and we've had programs, salary support programs in France. We've had money that's basically contingency funds that they backed. Canada's had, the programs, wage support programs, and we've got special consideration from Veterans Affairs. So I think we're fine. I think there's going to be a surge when things open up. So we'll be back to heavy visitor traffic. People are just primed to go out and visit. So when we get our international travelers back, I think we'll be in good shape. So I'm very optimistic in the long term that things will settle back into normal. We can continue on our growth plan again.
Thank you. Very quick question for you, Mr. McClellan. You indicated that you're in the process of getting your museum to a national status. Where are you on that process? What steps are yet to be taken?
Thank you. We are moving forward. It is not a process that has a playbook, so we're creating it with Canadian Heritage at the table. I would like to say that this process is moving at the speed of business or the speed that we would like, but it's not. It's a slow process, and while we have been referenced recently in the most recent budget, we're very appreciative of that. There's details still to come of that. We're committed, and we're so convinced that the story we're telling and the opportunities we have are important to Canada. We will continue moving forward. We expect it'll be a couple of years before we invite you all to that opening ceremony, though.
Thank you.
Look forward to it. Thank you.
Afraid that's time. We have next on my list is MP Doherty, but I'm wondering if John, I understand Todd's having some internet issues, so we're going to go to Kathy. Okay. MP Wagentall, 5 minutes, please.
Great. Thank you so much, Chair. I would like to just go back to Mr. McClellan, when we're talking about commemoration. And what I'm hearing is awesome, because we need that commemoration to be there for the first purpose, which was to ensure that Canadians understand and appreciate the contributions and sacrifices made by those in uniforms. However, the second one is so that all veterans and their family members feel recognized. And I haven't talked to RCMP members as much, but as an example, the Afghan cohort, there isn't a place in Canada that they can go to yet that is coming that says they recognize what we did. And so when I think of the opportunity for the museum for our RCMP, many of them I know from speaking with them faced atrocious circumstances overseas, but also at home. And our veterans now, is there a way that we should include that type of commemoration from VAC, considering that they are part of our responsibility within Veterans Affairs?
It's an interesting question. I think that solutions to determine the best way to collectively, as Canadians, honor these people for their for those that lost their lives, as well as those who suffered. It needs to be a broader conversation. We spend an awful lot of time, and rightfully so, on the First and Second World War, and I applaud that. 100% support it. But you've alerted us today to the Afghan women and men who have come back, and they all left something on the sands of Afghanistan, if you will, as our Mounties do when they have served. And there's some great tragedies that have happened, sadly, recently in the world of policing that I think need to be represented. And so how we do it exactly, I couldn't tell you, but I do know that the Mounties do a capable job, very, very good job of recognizing those that have lost their lives. They do an annual memorial service and so on. And on depot, their names are recognized on a cenotaph. I think what we need to do is to make sure we as Canadians and agencies have that ability to place that name, if you will. And then most importantly is that we tell the rest of Canada, come and see it and pay attention to it. And through standing in front of those cenotaphs in Arcola, Saskatchewan, or Yorkton, Saskatchewan, or on depot, people go, okay, this is critical. Man, these people made a difference. And standing next to a Mountie who knew that person whose name is there, that matters. And it needs to matter. And we need to continue to tell Canadians why it matters. Otherwise, we'll continue to make mistakes that we've made in the past. Let's not do it again in the future.
Thank you. Chair, do I have a couple more minutes?
Yep, you have 2 minutes.
Perfect. Caroline, I would like to ask you a question. In reading through what you had shared today, you indicated that you are also developing a framework to guide the renewal of the museum's galleries in response to demographic and societal changes in Canada. This renewal will include the addition of a new dimension to the presentation of Canada's military history to help explain our world in the 21st century. I find that very fascinating and would love, have you processed this? Are there things that you could share with us today as to what that is going to entail?
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure to talk to you a little bit about that. Again, this is a project that is starting for us, but as anything, museology ages quickly as well. So we want to ensure that our museum, that is already 16 years old, if you can believe it, is in need of that renewal and that new approach. And the way we told history in the late 90s and early 2000s is different to how we tell it today. And our main objective, I would say, in the early days of this new framework, is to tell that story in a very meaningful and relevant way. So I think many of the participants on this call have alluded to this earlier, but it's to make history matter. So if an event happened 100 years ago, how does it still impact the Canada I know today? So that all Canadians can connect to that history. And I can give you probably one of my favorite examples is the story of Princess Pegamagabo, who was a very known and decorated, the most decorated Indigenous soldier in the First World War. We tell his story in our gallery, but in our new approach, what we would do is we would extend that story and say how Pegamagabo's legacy and his activist work later on paved the way for some of the Indigenous rights we know today, so that people can make that connection with history.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
That's actually exactly time. Thank you. Up next, we have MP Fillmore, please, for 5 minutes. Andy, I think your boom mic is up.
Got me. Yeah, there we go. Thanks. Thanks for the witnesses for their time today. And one of you had said that we are all connected in some way to service, and that was very nice of Scott Davidson to share the story of his grandfather. I'm just going to hold that up. That's my grandfather. Maybe he knew Scott's grandfather. He was also at Vimy Ridge, injured there. That was him when he was signing up freshly to the Princess Patricia's Light Canadian Infantry a long time ago. He was lucky. He came home and he started a family, and I was able to take my seat in Parliament to help to participate in the democracy that he and others gave so much to defend. So it's a great privilege to be here with all of you. And Ms. Dromagu, we've 2 years in a row now, we've missed the Battle of the Atlantic Gala, and you'll remember that there's the famous photograph of the survivors of the Battle of the Atlantic. We have that photograph each year, and the group gets smaller every year, and I'm just so terrified of going back from 2019 to 2022 when we'll be able to do it again, and how much that group will have shrunk by then. So to all of you, thank you for the work that you do to commemorate and remember the sacrifices that have happened, that have been given by our Canadians over many years. I want to bring it to memorials and physical monuments. I represent Halifax. It's a Navy town, so I'm going to go to the Navy by way of example. Here in Point Pleasant Park, we have the anchor of HMCS Bonaventure, the Bonnie, and that is a monument to people who lost their lives in service during peacetime. There are a lot of monuments like this around the country that it's not quite clear in whose ownership they really belong. They suffer from vandalism, from age. In the case of the Bonaventure Monument, shoreline erosion, because it's right on the edge of the ocean. We recently were able to coordinate between DND, VAC, a local survivors group of the HMCS Kootenay disaster, whose shipmates are on that monument. And we were able to bring that monument back in time for the 60th anniversary of the Kootenay disaster. But it wasn't easy. It wasn't straightforward. So using that as an example, I guess, I'm wondering if any of you might have some advice for us on how we can care for these many smaller monuments that are throughout our communities across the country that commemorate those who have fallen. And I might start with Mr. McClellan, given your domestic mandate. But if others would share any wisdom as well, I'd be very grateful.
Thank you. I can be very crisp on this. We have many young people who are lamenting the fact that they can't get out and socialize. We have many young women and men in this country who are in their 18 to 25-year-old, 30-year-old, who want to be cause supportive. If we give them a cause, it can be 2 days work, 5 days work. It could be a committee of young people who would support the work necessary there. I think they will do all kinds of things. The physical work to take off the graffiti, the physical work to call on sponsors and to do the work that's necessary and to share the stories. I think there's lots of young Canadians we've not engaged in this, and we've asked our veterans to serve again by putting their cash and their time towards it. Let's get our young people active. I bet they'll be more than enthusiastic.
I think it's a brilliant idea. That brings labor to the equation. I think there's also something about funding, though. It was in the end, it was a rather expensive bit of shoreline restoration. Are there any experiences, perhaps from the other witnesses, from overseas monuments, how other countries or other veterans organizations are managing the funding stream that preserves these monuments going into the future?
I can maybe comment quickly on France, since I know it a little bit. Please. But they have generally, like in Canada, often fall under the municipalities' purview, and the municipalities will look after them and have a sense of history that basically gets them to do that. And the youth aspect is really important. That's a great idea that Steve brought up, I think. Basically, in France, the youth, and in Holland in particular, both countries, they get the youth out there to put wreaths on the graves, little Canadian flags on the grave. So they're involved. They're involved in essentially commemoration. And that's an important aspect, whether you're removing graffiti or something else. So stick with the idea.
Thank you both for that great idea. I very much appreciate it.
It's about 10 seconds left, and I think Mr. Loveridge has his hand up here, but I didn't want that 10 seconds to go to waste if you wanted to contribute, sir.
Just quickly, I think we've got a fair bit of experience with it. A lot of regimental units, especially over in England and Europe, put together memorials. They funded. It's easy to fund for the memorial. It's difficult to fund for the life cycle maintenance of the memorial. And so part of that, I think, was the same in Canada. People want to build memorials, and those are all good things. But unfortunately, it's who owns it afterwards and who maintains it and where do the funds come from. And that's the kind of questions we need to be asking.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And up next for 2.5 minutes, and MP Desilets, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to follow up on what was just said by Mr. Loveridge, but my question is actually now for Ms. Bailey. We were approached not long ago by a French commemorative association that was looking at a site very important for the 22nd Regiment from Quebec, so Descartes, which is in northern France. So compared with Vimy, this isn't a very important site. It isn't considered very important. It's very small. In your opinion, does VAC have a strategy to support this kind of less important monument? Thank you very much, Mr. Desilets. Right now for Canada, I can say yes, there is a program that distributes under Commemorations Partnership, and it's for the support and maintenance of these secondary monuments, if we can call them that way. But these are only in Canada, and the problem is that there is no counterpart to that for monuments abroad, for example, in Europe. And it's already been said by Mr. Loveridge that it is quite complicated. That is, who pays, whether it's in Canada, whether it's in France, perhaps some group doesn't exist or has changed names, so it's quite complex. But I think a good start would be to consider opening up that program to include sites like you mentioned. So I understand that they're having a hard time finding funding because it's abroad. It's not a huge monument like Vimy, so I understand. Mr. Cooper, you mentioned earlier that your association had a major deficit given that you aren't getting visitors. Are you in danger of having to close? No, not at all.
I'll allow for a quick answer, please.
Okay. On est pas en danger.
No, we are not in danger. I think we are getting very good support from the government.
Merci.
Thank you. MP Blaney for 2.5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Chair. And if I could come back to you again, Mr. Cooper, I'm of course extremely relieved to hear that, and I had no doubt that people would stand up for this very important monument. I'm just a couple of questions. I guess one of them is you spoke in your presentation about your ideas and thoughts around the expansion and what you want to do with the facility that you have. I'm just wondering a little bit more about what that looks like. And the other thing that I thought you just did a really great job of is talking about the opportunity and commitment to bear witness to this history and have this as the monument that does that work. And I'm just wondering if you could talk about activities that you're doing to encourage youth to participate and learn, and if there's any steps that you're taking to do things with technology or anything to engage that younger population.
Yeah, I think that's been a theme of basically our museum from day one. We basically we're the only museum at I don't know if somebody else has done it now, but we certainly were the only museum that had a youth circuit, for example, going through it that was specifically designed for people, 4 feet high. And we've maintained that throughout. We've done it today with Pierre and Madeleine theme and so forth. So yes, we've addressed that. We address it in terms of the interactions of the local population of French kids who basically, do the commemorations and plant the flags and do those kind of things. So it's very much a youth-focused orientation we've had from the beginning. To the point perhaps about financing, we have a vibrant museum essentially that we're trying to basically make better all the time. So when we look at a project, for example, like our expansion project, is to accommodate the extra visitors that we're getting and can anticipate. But it's also a project that reaches us closer to that goal of sustainability and financing. Because basically, we're talking about expanding our boutique so we can sell more goods and make more money. And we basically are going to expand into a coffee shop, that will bring in additional revenue. So the net result of all of this, there's a business case. There's a business case to say, yeah, we're going to spend this money, but we're going to get it back over time and make for a better visitor experience. So we're a little different from Vimy, which doesn't charge and can't charge. It's a different animal. We basically can and do and operate our facility as much like a business as we can.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Up next for 5 minutes, MP Broussard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just looking to the future, and I would pose this to all of our witnesses. Some of the commemoration ceremonies that you've got planned, I guess the difficulty is knowing whether things are going to be open, whether we're going to be able to plan for these type of commemorations. But just going forward, what are some of the plans with respect to each individual organization as it relates to commemoration of some of the more significant events that affect our military? Caitlin, if you want to start with you again.
Thank you so much, John. Yeah, I'm happy to start. Our first is next year, which is Vimy 105. It's hard to believe that we're already 5 years out of the centennial.
I was there for the 100th. It's unbelievable.
Me too. Yeah. I was in a tent. I never want to go back to that tent. But it's hard to believe that we're there. So our 105 initiative is the Vimy A Living Memorial, which is a digital project. So it is an app that will explore the Vimy site. We're working with the European operations team to do that, and an additional digital commemoration space that we're building with the National Film Board of Canada, which is going to be a connect modern, I'm going to call them contemporary veterans, Canadians with historical sources to try to bring people into the, bring people together thinking about the question of what war means. When we're finished that, we're moving on towards the building of the monument. We'll be planning a lot of different activities around Walter Allward and the process that built the Vimy Monument. So we have a lot on the go right now in the next 5 years.
Right, that's great. Well, hopefully things will return a little bit back to normal around this time, so that we can celebrate 105. And I said this after my experience at Vimy 100. I came back, actually said it in the House of Commons, just as much as, you know, the Taj Mahal, the Wailing Wall, other sites around the world attract whether it's religious symbols or individuals. I think Vimy is a place that every Canadian school children should visit. School child should visit as part of not just the learning experience, but really to understand, because you know, being there for me, and I know for many, was a life-altering experience being at that Vimy 100 celebration. So appreciate that. Don, maybe next to you, some of the things that the Juno Center is looking forward to when and if we do get back to some sense of normalcy.
Yeah, I think I've been fairly optimistic in my comments so far. Where we have challenges is basically to fund capital projects as we go forward. We have a few. I can give you, these are confidential discussions that were happening, but I'll try and couch my words carefully.
You know we're open right now, right? So people are watching, so
I understand.
Just be mindful of that.
The House on the Beach is a project that is in play for us right now. It's historic, but the owners essentially have put it in play. We've been in discussion for a couple of years and in discussion with the town of Bernier. So it's a huge asset on the Normandy beach. It's a huge visual representation, you know, of the landings. And my dad talked about it because he came in on June 6th, and basically the house on the beach was his reference point.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one project and an example of the challenges we face. You know, what do you do? How do you do the programming for it? How do you make it make money, or at least break even so it's not a burden, and so on and so forth. And we have another major project that I won't talk about, but it's been in the French press, not so much in Canada. But we have a battle brewing with a neighbor who wants to put up 70 apartments right next to our parking lot.
I've heard of that.
Les Dunes. Mm-hmm. And we won our second legal battle in that fight, but we are continuing to fight, basically, and we'll see where it goes. But there's an upside to it potentially, and a downside that could be quite negative if that project goes through and doesn't allow us to keep barriers up, essentially, to keep people off our roads.
Right.
So that's the synopsis of where I see the future and where we're going.
Okay. Mr. Chair, how much more time have I got?
You've been about 40 seconds.
Okay. I guess I'll just conclude by saying thank you to all of the witnesses for coming here today. And I said at the onset, and I'll say it again, that the issue of commemoration, the history of our country, you know, as I often say, the lives that have been lost, the blood that's been spilled, the families that have been decimated by war, keeping those memories alive are critical to what we do, not just here as a committee and the recommendations that we're going to be making, but also any government that is in place to make sure that that commemoration is held true. So thank you all to the witnesses. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Up next for 5 minutes, MP Amos. Oh, he doesn't have it. You don't have your headset on, Will. Oh. Sure if he's having trouble unmuting here. Will, can you hear me okay? You're on my list, but if you want to defer, that's fine.
Time for a Mr. Davidson song. A little intervention. No?
Don't get me started.
No more soup and sandwich bowl. Sorry, Mr. Chair. I didn't realize that I was on the list again. So I'm happy to defer to a colleague. Well, I'm also happy to seize upon the occasion. I don't have this good fortune.
Sure. Well, you're on my list, but if somebody else, if one of your colleagues wants to jump in,
let me jump in because I didn't have the opportunity to ask Mrs. Bailey her opinion of the federal budget, how it did or didn't work for the Vimy Foundation. I know that many members on this committee stood up in support of what Vimy was seeking, and I commend my colleagues for their budget activism in that regard. So, Ms. Bailey, if you'd like to opine further.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amos. So yes, I mean, we did not get the allocation that so many of you advocated for, and I'd like to thank all of you for the efforts that you made on our behalf. It was really, really wonderful to see, and it was excellent to be able to speak to each of you and to know that you took an interest in what, you know, the drum that we're banging. We understand that the budget this year is certainly a particular budget. We're in a situation where there are many, many, many more needs than ours that are pressing and immediate, and ours is more of a long-term proposal. So I think from our perspective, in the short term, yes, we didn't get the envelope this year that we asked for. We will continue to push for that envelope. We will continue to draw attention to the question of overseas monuments. Monsieur Desilets avait aussi mentionné
Mr. Desilets also mentioned the other monument at Quatre, and that's a big problem. Finding how to do this
issue. And we would like to see the 10-year plan, and we would like to work with Veterans Affairs on this, to see that 10-year plan try to handle these questions proactively rather than reactively. And, you know, my colleague, Mr. Leverage, mentioned this as well. You know, there's been a ton of work done on repairing the backlog of gravestones here in Canada, and nobody wants to see that backlog build back up again. And that needs to be a continued proactive view rather than viewing it from when everything is falling apart and it becomes such a big problem that no one can ignore it anymore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Do I have a little time left?
Yep, and it looks like you've got 2 minutes, and it looks like Mr. McClellan has a contribution.
I only have, just for a brief second, I have a hard stop. I have to leave for our Heritage Center board meeting. I wanted to say thanks to everyone. Congratulations on this conversation and good luck on your efforts. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Will, you have about a minute.
Okay, perhaps I could give Mr. Cooper the opportunity to speak to Juno Beach's reaction to the budget.
We've been happy with the budget so far. I mean, we basically, I think, have been satisfied with the level of support we've gotten. We would also always like a little bit more to help us with our main projects. We don't run out of aspirations and visions for things to do. So we've maintained the same level of support for about 15 years. And, you know, we think it's being eroded by inflation and so forth. And so we think it merits a review. But other than that, I don't have any dissatisfaction to express.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And seeing as we only have a few minutes before our stop at 6, I don't think we have time to get through another round. I wanted to just take a moment and thank all of the witnesses for being here today. This has been a very good session, and I want to thank you for your contributions to this study. To the members, our next scheduled meeting is on Monday, May the 3rd, and we'll of course resume this study, and will be attended by the department officials and as well as the Royal Canadian Legion. So again, thank you all very much for your help today, and a big thank you to all the tech staff, the folks that can make us be heard, both in this meeting and across Canada, in both official languages. So thank you very much, everybody, and I adjourn today's meeting.